warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Dini Wibowo, called Dini from 2025 International class with study earning number 023. So today I'm gonna talk about the impact of the Iran and US conflict on Indonesia economy and international business. But before we get into number and trade data, let me paint you a picture first. So imagine you run a factory in Surabaya and you import raw materials. Your trucks run on diesel. Your worker cook with LPG at home, and then one morning you wake up and hear that the US and Israel have launched a military strike on Iran, and the world's most important oil shipping line is effectively shut down. So that morning was February 28, 2026, and for Indonesia, one of Asia's biggest energy importer, that single event started a chain reaction that touched our economy, our businesses, and our daily life. So in this video, I'm going to analyze what this conflict really means for Indonesia, and not just as a new headline, but as a serious international business case. With the largest economy in Southeast Asia and ranked 17th globally, with 283 million people and fourth most population nation, with top commodity exports like coal, palm oil, and nickel. And Indonesia is a member of G20, ASEAN, and also he recently joined BRICS at 2025, with GDP growth from 5.11% in 2023, and it is stronger in 3 years, with trade surplus of 41 billion in 2025. But here's the part that makes this conflict so dangerous for us. Specifically, Indonesia is net oil importer. We consume at least 1.7 million barrels per day and produce only 580,000 per day, and over 1 million barrels per day gap is filled by import. We haven't been able to produce enough of our own oil since 2003, so we import a lot, and most of it comes from the Middle East. And all of the oil has to pass through Wonder Point, the Strait of Hormuz, that 21 mile choke point between Iran and Oman, and it's quite literally Indonesia's energy supply line. And when it's blocked, our entire energy import system is destroyed. So that's the foundation of our vulnerability. Now let's look at how Indonesia stands in relationship between two sides of this conflict. Now this is where Indonesia's position gets really interesting and complicated. Indonesia doesn't have a military alliance with either Iran and the United States. Our foreign policy has always been guided by what we call bebel active or free and active. So kita netral, kita terlibat dalam semua pihak, dan prinsip itu udah melayani kita dengan baik selama puluhan tahun. But this conflict is putting the principle under enormous pressure from two very different directions. On one side, the United States. The US is one of Indonesia's most important economic partners. World trade, our investment flow, and our export market, the US matter deeply. And President Wibowo signed a trade deal with Washington in February 2026, and he even joined the Trump Board of Peace for gazetted contraction. Economically, Indonesia needs that relationship. And the other side, Iran and the Muslim world. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim majority nation. When US and Israel strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, the public reaction here was immediate and intense. Protests erupted across major Indonesian great cities. People were angry, and our government had to be very careful about how it is responding. And President Wibowo offered to mediate between the two sides, a move that reflects Indonesia's bebas active tradition, but even that gesture became controversial at home. Some senior former officials publicly said that it was unrealistic. The bottom line is, Indonesia is being pulled into direction at once, and there's no clear answer. And this diplomatic tension isn't just a political story. It has dire consequences for how Indonesia can and cannot respond to the economic shock of this conflict. In the session 3, we're going to talk about the economic impact. The moment the conflict started and the Strait of Hormuz was disrupted, Global oil prices rise sharply, and for Indonesia, this not just a number on the screen, it has very real, very immediate consequence. Bayangkan dari perspektif pemerintah di mana Indonesia itu menghabiskan puluhan miliar dolar setiap tahunnya untuk mengimpor minyak aja. Nah, ketika harga minyak itu melonjak, tagihan impor itu juga meledak. Dan karena pemerintah itu berjanji untuk terus menjaga harga BBM itu tetap stabil untuk rakyat Indonesia, terutama menjelang Idul Fitri, negara itu harus menyerap selisih melalui subsidi. Nah, itu adalah beban fiskal yang sangat besar yang muncul hampir dalam semalam saja. Dan itu menciptakan reaksi berantai di ekonomi yang lebih luas. When the government spend more on subsidies, there is less room from development spending. When investors see the budgets under pressure, confidence drop, and when confidence drop, the rupiah weaken, which means that everything Indonesia import becomes more expensive. Jadi harga impor bakal lebih mahal dari yang sebelumnya, termasuk dengan minyak yang sudah kita kesulitan beli itu tadi. And it is a physical cycle, and it starts with that one disruptive line that is start of rumors. Let's zoom in on what this means specifically for international business and trade, because this is really the heart of the nation. The first and most immediate impact is on supply chain. The Strait of Hormuz closure means ships cannot take their normal routes. They have to go all the way around Africa, adding almost 2 weeks to every journey. That might sound like it's just a logistic problem, but in international business, 2 extra weeks mean that biaya angkutan itu jadi lebih tinggi, jadwal produksi itu jadi tertunda, dan ada kontrak yang dilanggar, dan adanya ketegangan hubungan antar pemasok. Dan bagi produsen Indonesia yang bergantung pada bahan baku impor, itu adalah gangguan yang serius. And the second impact hits a sector that doesn't get enough attention, like agriculture. Most people don't realize that pupuk atau pondasi pasokan pangan Indonesia itu sangat bergantung pada petrokimia yang ada di Timur Tengah. Nah, ketika pasokan itu terganggu dan harga melonjak, menjadi lebih mahal untuk menanam padi, jagung, dan juga kelapa sawit. Dan itu akhirnya bakalan menghantam harga pangan di Indonesia, yang menghantam setiap konsumen tunggal di negeri ini juga. And the third impact is on foreign investment. Ketika suatu kawasan dalam pergolakan geopolitik, investor global itu menjadi gugup. Modal mengalir ke tempat yang lebih aman, dan bagi Indonesia itu berarti potensi perlambatan investasi masuk asing, terutama di sektor yang paling kita butuhkan sekarang kayak nikel dan juga industri baterai. Industri itu membutuhkan energi yang stabil dan terjangkau untuk beroperasi. Ketika energi menjadi mahal dan tidak pasti, argumentasi bisnis ini jadi lebih melemah. Dan the fourth impact, one that affect millions of Indonesia family directly, is LPG. More than 70 million households in Indonesia use subsidized LPG for cooking. A significant portion of the LPG comes from the Middle East. When the supply chain is disrupted, it's not just an inconvenience. It's not just an ketidaknyamanan. It's a crisis for the families who depend on those little green cylinders every single day. So what we're saying here that conflict thousands of kilometers away in the Middle East isn't actually distinct for Indonesia at all. We're gonna talk about the business strategic response. The most urgent response is energy supply diversification. Langkah yang paling mendesak yang harus kita ambil adalah diversifikasi energi. Jadi kita nggak boleh lagi naruh seluruh nasib energi kita hanya pada satu wilayah aja, yaitu Timur Tengah. Karena kalau misalnya hanya bergantung pada satu tempat aja, keamanan energi kita akan selalu terancam setiap kali ada gejolak politik di sana. Dan kabar baiknya, Indonesia itu udah mulai bergerak cerdas dengan menjalin kesepakatan besar pasokan minyak dan juga LPG dengan Amerika Serikat. Internasional, konflik ini itu membawa salah satu pelajaran mahal, yaitu manajemen risiko adalah segalanya. Selama ini kita mungkin terlalu fokus pada efisiensi, menekan biaya serendah mungkin agar operasional berjalan sempurna. Tapi lihat apa yang terjadi saat krisis melanda, rantai pasok yang hanya mengejar efisiensi ternyata sangat rapuh karena tidak punya fleksibilitas. Pelajaran besarnya adalah ketahanan atau resilience harus berada di atas efisiensi. Bisnis ke depan tidak bisa lagi hanya mengandalkan satu pemasok aja. Kita butuh strategi yang lebih tangguh seperti diversifikasi pemasok yang tadi, risk lindung nilai, dan juga penjaga inventaris. Dan secara diplomatiknya, aset terbesar Indonesia saat ini adalah kredibilitas kita sebagai pihak yang netral, dengan tetap setia pada prinsip bebas aktif dan juga memaksimalkan peran kita di ASEAN, G20 dan juga Indonesia itu bukan hanya. Conclusion is the Iran and US conflict started as a military event on the other side of the world, but what is revealed is something that global supply chain, energy market, and exchange rates are the invisible thread that connect geopolitical events to the everyday life of people and businesses everywhere. For Indonesia, this conflict has been a wake-up call. It has both our energy vulnerability, it tests our diplomatic principles, and it put real pressure on our businesses and households. But it also showed us exactly where we need to be stronger. And Indonesia has the resources, the relationship, and the diplomatic tradition to navigate this well. So thank you. I hope this analysis gave you a clear example of this conflict for a week and thus shape the future of international business and the Indonesia economy. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.